Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our Psychology and Happiness course. Today, we're going to be talking about building and maintaining quality intimate relationships. And we have a lot of great information to go over, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. So studies have found that marriage can be very good for our mental and physical health. So specifically, studies have shown that married individuals live longer, have fewer heart attacks and strokes, are less likely to become depressed, are more likely to survive cancer for a longer period of time, and survive an operation more often. So why is this? So there's a couple theories that researchers have come up with. So the first one is immune function. So studies have shown that people in happy marriages have a better immune function and lower levels of cortisol, which high levels of cortisol can impair our immune function. Okay, the third theory is behavior. So married individuals take fewer risks, eat healthier, keep regular doctor appointments, follow doctors' recommendations, and live healthier lifestyles on average when compared to single individuals. Okay, the third theory is mental health. So married individuals have lower rates of depression, loneliness, and social isolation, all of which are associated with poor health outcomes. And the fourth theory is better health before marriage. So people with medical problems or who have unhealthy habits may just be less likely to get married in the first place. Okay, so there's a lot of great health benefits associated with marriage. However, these health benefits are only seen in happy, high quality marriages. This is not necessarily the case for unhappily married individuals. So the impacts of unhappy marriage is also quite significant. Unhappily married individuals suffer from poor overall health, increased levels of psychological distress, lower levels of self-esteem, lower levels of happiness, and lower levels of life satisfaction. So clearly, high quality intimate relationships have a major impact on our physical and mental health. So we're going to talk about a few topics that influence marital quality. So we're first going to talk about attachment and attachment theory, then feelings of self-worth, then intimacy, conflict and communication, friendship, commitment, passion, and then sex. Okay, so what I love, research has found that love is a survival instinct and an attachment bond. In studies, neuropsychologists found that seeking comforting connections and contact is our foremost human instinct. It is not sex. So according to Dr. John Bowlby, an English psychiatrist, and I love what he said, we are designed to love a few precious others who will hold and protect us through the squalls and storms of life. It is nature's plan for the survival of the species. Sex may impel us to mate, but it is love that assures our existence. So in other words, sex may allow us to reproduce, but it is love that keeps us alive because love motivates us to take care of our loved ones and make sure they are safe, healthy, and taken care of. So love is a survival instinct that is stronger than our drive for sex. Also, neuropsychologists found that romantic love is an attachment bond, like the one between a child and their primary caregiver. So our need to depend on one meaningful person who we know will respond when we need them, that never goes away. This need just follows us from birth and lasts until we die. And as we get older and gain our independence, we transfer this need from our primary caregiver to our lover. Okay, so now that we know that love is an attachment bond, let's talk a little bit about attachment theory. This theory postulates that we all form an attachment style based on our early experiences with our childhood primary caregiver. These attachment styles are significant. Okay, they impact the way we view ourselves and others, the way we regulate our emotions, our expectations in love relationships, and how we interpret the actions of our loved ones. Okay, now let's talk about the 4 attachment styles. So there's 4 of them. The first one is called secure attachment style. And this one is typically associated with the healthiest and most successful long-term intimate relationships. The other 3 attachment styles are considered insecure attachment styles. And they include avoidant, anxious, and disorganized. These types of insecure attachment styles can sometimes cause problems in our relationships. So now let's talk about a little bit about how each of these are formed. So let's start with secure. So babies form secure attachments when their caregivers consistently fulfill a baby's physical and emotional needs. Babies who are securely attached prefer their primary caregiver over other people and are calmed by their presence. Okay, avoidant. So this type is most likely to form when a caregiver doesn't provide a baby with sufficient emotional support. So the caregiver's responsiveness to the baby most likely ends with caring for their physical needs, like feeding and bathing, but the caregiver doesn't provide the emotional comfort the baby also needs. In that environment, the baby learns not to rely on others to care for their emotional needs. Okay, now let's talk about anxious. So babies whose primary caregivers aren't consistent in meeting a baby's needs are more likely to form this style. Anxiously attached babies learn that they may or may not get the attention they need, so they aren't easily comforted by their caregivers. Okay, now let's talk about the last one, which is disorganized. So this style often forms through a particularly tumultuous childhood. often one that may be marked by fear or trauma. It typically stems from an erratic or incoherent relationship with the baby's primary caregiver. Okay, now let's talk about the impacts of each of these attachment styles on our romantic relationships. So secure. People with a secure attachment style are more readily able to form long-lasting and healthy relationships with others. They're more likely to trust their partner and be emotionally available to them. Okay, and this is actually the most common attachment style. About 58% of adults have this style. Okay, avoidant. Adults with an avoidant attachment style can be seen as excessively self-reliant and emotionally guarded. They're usually unlikely to seek emotional comfort or understand how to comfort their partner. About 23% of adults have this style. Okay, anxious. Adults with an anxious style may be seen as clingy, needy, or not trusting. They can be consumed with concern that their loved ones will abandon them, and they may seek constant reassurance that they're safe in their relationships. And about 19% of adults have this style. Okay, and the last one, disorganized. So adults with disorganized attachments are likely to live with mental health disorders or personality disorders that prevent them from developing healthy relationships with others. They're likely to crave close relationships, but push others away when they show them attention. So this style is the most extreme and least common. Individuals with this style can act irrationally and be intense and even unpredictable in their relationships because of the trauma they experienced with their primary attachment figure in childhood. Okay, and this one, about or less than 1% of the adult population has this attachment style. Okay, so a couple of things about attachment styles. So attachment styles are a spectrum. They are not black and white, and they can differ between our different relationships. So the attachment spectrum looks a lot like this four square grid with an attachment style representing each square. So in this example, the blue square represents avoidant, red, disorganized, yellow, anxious, and green, secure. And each different colored dot could represent a different relationship you have. So in this fake example, the red dot represents an attachment style with some fake individual's mother, the green represents an attachment style with their father, and the blue represents an attachment style with their partner. So as you can see, for example, the blue dot would represent a more slightly anxious attachment style because although it is in the yellow square, it is closer to the secure attachment green square. So if it was further to the right, it would have represented a stronger anxious attachment style because it's further into that anxious square. Okay. Also, attachment styles are not always constant. So according to Dr. Sue Johnson, although we typically identify with one style, we don't typically stay stuck in one for life. Life and our brains are more complicated than that. So instead, our attachment changes and adapts to our current environments. So let's talk about a few examples to explain this a little bit better. So a secure style can shift to a more anxious style during times of relational conflict or if a relationship becomes unstable. Also, a more insecure style can shift to a more secure style with work and a healthy, loving relationship. So the primary message is to be aware of your primary attachment style and what attachment styles you may be prone to step into during life's ups and downs. This self-awareness will help us to shift dysfunctional attachment-related strategies to more functional ones. Okay, so what if I have an insecure attachment style? Well, the good news is kind of like what we talked about in the last slide, is that research shows that we can learn to cope with and manage our insecure attachment styles and even shift them to a more secure style with therapy and surrounding ourselves with healthy, loving, and secure relationships. Also, according to Dr. Coda DeRig, and she's a psychologist from the Cleveland Clinic, she mentions that those with a disorganized attachment style may also benefit from dialectical behavioral therapy, also known as DBT. And this is a type of therapy that is especially helpful for those who experience strong emotions. So this specific type of intervention may help these individuals heal from the wounds of their more traumatic childhood. Okay. So I'm sure many of you are now wondering, what is my attachment style? Well, there are many places online that claim to help you understand your attachment style. However, Dr. Coda DeRig warns us to tread cautiously because much of this information may not be scientifically based. Dr. DeRig suggests that if you believe your attachment style is negatively impacting your relationship, you should instead seek help from a professional who can help you understand and heal from any attachment wounds that you may have. Dr. DeRig also states who we are and how we relate to others is always more complicated than one variable. So labeling yourself or your partner as having a particular attachment style can lead to oversimplifying the complex web of interactions that we experience as humans. There are countless reasons that explain why we are the way we are. So if your partner is emotionally walled off at times, for instance, rushing to blame an insecure attachment style isn't necessarily helpful for either of you. So the point I'm trying to make is although our and our partner's attachment styles can have a large impact on the quality of our relationships, there may be other reasons that explain why we are the way we are in our relationships. So always blaming an attachment style for every problem that comes up in your relationship may not be helpful for your relationship. Okay, now let's talk about a different topic. So the benefits of healthy self-worth. So according to psychologist and director of the Counseling Center at BYU, Dr. Jim McArthur, healthy feelings of self-worth are positively associated with relationship quality. Okay, and I love Dr. McArthur's definition of self-worth. It kind of has two parts to it. So first, he says that people with healthy feelings of self-worth can generate feelings of worth internally. They do not need external validation to maintain their feelings of worth. So in other words, they do not need to rely on other people's approval to feel good about themselves. And the second part is that those who have healthy feelings of self-worth are individuals who can view themselves in a balanced way. So they are realistically aware of both their strengths and weaknesses and are comfortable with their weaknesses because they recognize that everybody has some. So in other words, they recognize that weaknesses are just part of the human experience. Okay, and according to Dr. McArthur, those with healthier feelings of self-worth are more likely to weather storms in relationships because they are thicker skinned. So they do not take offense so easily in their relationships. They're also more comfortable with themselves, so they are less self-preoccupied, which allows them to focus on the needs of their partners. They're also more flexible in their thinking, and this allows them to listen, tolerate, and appreciate their partner's differing viewpoints. Things do not always have to be their way because they do not need their partners to validate what they think. And they're also able to accept feedback and criticisms in a healthy and productive way. They view feedback and criticisms as ways to improve themselves and their relationships rather than threats to their feelings of self-worth. Okay. Additionally, partners with healthy feelings of self-worth are more comfortable and less anxious in their relationships, so they're able to have better communication skills that contribute to the building and maintaining of intimacy. So they are more able to speak honestly and clearly about their feelings, needs, and wants rather than suppressing them. They're also better listeners because they don't take personally the feelings of their partners. So individuals who have more inadequate levels of self-worth are more likely to feel responsible for their partner's stated or imagined feelings, needs, and actions, which they react, contributing to escalating conflict. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about ways to increase our feelings of self-worth actually next time in part 3. So that'll be a great lesson. Hey, intimacy. Let's talk about that. Intimacy is a feeling of closeness and connection, and it develops from a communication process involving self-disclosure and responsiveness between partners. Okay, so this process provides an opportunity for the self-disclosing partner to be vulnerable and for the responding partner to express understanding, empathy, and validation, which builds closeness and connection. Hey, let's talk about self-disclosure. So self-disclosure is communicating personal information, thoughts, and feelings to another. And there's two types of self-disclosure. So the first is factual. This is descriptive. So this would be like the number of siblings you have. So this is a little bit more surface level. The second is emotional. And this is more evaluative. So this would be like your feelings about your siblings. So this is deeper and has been found to be more important to building and maintaining intimacy than factual disclosure. Okay, now let's talk about responsiveness. So responding appropriately to your partner's self-disclosure is vital to building and maintaining intimacy. So being responsive to self-disclosure involves expressing interest while your partner speaks, expressing that you understand their emotions, and validating their emotions. A couple of examples of phrases provided by Dr. Gottman that help your partner know that you understand them may include, hearing that makes perfect sense why you're upset. That sounds terrible. I totally agree with how you see it, and I'd be stressed out too. Okay. So a question I'd like you to ponder for a moment is all conflict in marriage harmful? Why or why not? What do you think? So no, according to Dr. John Gottman, and he's a world-renowned psychologist and marriage researcher, conflict in marriage is inevitable because we're different people coming from different experiences, but if handled correctly, can increase the quality of our intimate relationships. However, based on a marriage theory, though, the happiness of the marriage is thought to be predicted by each of the partner's behaviors during their interactions and negotiations. So the more negative communication behaviors exhibited during interactions and conflict, the more likely the marriage will become unhappy and deteriorate. Also, not only can negative communication behaviors deteriorate our marriages, they can also have significant negative impacts on our children. So in fact, research shows that divorce itself is not the cause of long-term negative impacts on our children, is the amount of negative parental conflict that determines long-term negative impacts on children. So it's important to realize that how we deal with conflict in our relationships has a major impact on our marriages and on our children. Okay, and I apologize if you can hear the raining outside. It just started raining, so I apologize for that disruption. Okay, let's talk about conflict and communication. So according to Dr. John Gottman's research, there are 4 types of communication behaviors, also known as the 4 horsemen, during a conflict that predict divorce. So the first one is criticisms. And these are ways of complaining that convey that there is something defective about your partner. Second one is defensiveness. And this is meeting your partner's complaint with another complaint or playing the innocent victim. Okay, the third one, and this one's really important to pay attention to because it is the primary predictor of divorce, and it is disrespect and contempt. So this is talking down to your partner as a way to feel superior. And this can include insults and name calling. Okay, the fourth one is stonewalling. So this is emotionally withdrawing from conflict. This includes having your arms folded, looking down and away from the speaker, not speaking, no facial movements, things like that. And stonewalling can cause the speaker to feel ignored and not heard. And what do we do when we not feel heard? We get louder and more intense, which can cause conflict to escalate. Okay, now let's talk about 11 tips to keep communication clean and to avoid harmful communication. Okay, so number 1 is avoid flooding. So according to Dr. Gottman, when we are flooded with strong negative emotions, our fight or flight system kicks in, causing us to not be able to listen well, think clearly or creatively, or have empathy for our partner. So try to not bring up a problem when you are already flooded. Also, recognize and communicate when you are becoming flooded and take a small break from the conflict and return to it when you feel calmer. So one way to do this is to set a timer for like 20 minutes and use this time to allow both of you to kind of go and calm down and then come back to the conflict about 20 minutes later when both of you are calmer to help you reach a resolution. Okay, number 2, when bringing up a problem, use whole messages. So these include a couple things. They include observations, which are neutral statements of fact. They also include thoughts. These are your theories, interpretations, and beliefs about a situation. These are not communicated as absolute truths, but as your understanding of a situation. So for example, saying something like, the way I saw it, ... Okay, they also include feelings, and these are important because these are descriptions of your emotional state. And they also include needs and wants. So try not to assume that your partner knows your needs or wants, okay? They cannot know them if you do not express them clearly. Okay, number 3, try the speaker listener technique during disagreements. So there's a couple rules with this technique. So rules for both of you. Allow the speaker to speak without interruptions. And as the speaker, do not go on and on. Allow the other to speak and switch the speaker role often. Okay, rules for the speaker. After a short time of speaking, allow the listener to paraphrase. If they're not quite accurate, politely restate any points of confusion. Okay, now rules for the listener. Listen to understand, not to respond. Put yourself in their shoes and reflect on what they're saying. Paraphrase what you hear to make sure you understand their message correctly. Okay. Number 4, avoid use statements that blame and accuse and use I statements to describe your feelings, thoughts, and concerns. So use statements blame your partner for your feelings, thoughts, and concerns, while I statements allow you to take responsibility for these things. Okay, and this can be a great antidote to defensiveness. So let's talk about a couple examples of these you and I statements. So an example of a you statement could be, you don't care about my feelings. Or an I statement in this example could be, I feel sad when it seems like my feelings are not taken seriously. Okay, and another example of a you statement could be, you never clean up after yourself. Or an I statement could be, I feel stressed when the house is disorganized. So you can kind of see with these examples the difference between you and I statements. So you statements come across more harshly because they blame your partner, while I statements come across softer. So they're less likely to trigger a defensive response from your partner. Okay, number 5, do not try to mind read. Do not talk about your perceptions of your partner's motives or point of view. Try to only focus on your feelings, thoughts, and concerns. This can also be a great antidote to defensiveness. Okay, number 6, validate your partner's feelings and views. And this is important. Validation does not require you to agree with your partner. Rather, it communicates respect and recognition for their point of view. Okay, so saying something like, yeah, I can see how ... made you feel that way. You have a point, but I'd like it if you try to understand my point of view and how I'm feeling too. Okay, number 7, take responsibility for your role in the problem. And this is also a great antidote to defensiveness. Okay, number 8, avoid global labels. And these are things like you never, you always. Okay, so these are typically unrealistic and can cause your partner to become defensive. Okay, number 9, have a stress reducing conversation every day to avoid harmful communication. So external stress spills over into our relationships. To avoid this, try spending 20 to 30 minutes per day at the end of the day talking about daily stresses. And during this time, do not bring up marriage stresses or try to provide unsolicited solutions. But do listen with empathy, express understanding, express validation for their feelings, be affectionate, and share in the emotions of your partner. Number 10, build a culture of positivity through intentional appreciation to avoid harmful communication. So how you think about your partner influences how you treat them. And according to Dr. Gottman, happy couples get in the habit of scanning the environment for things they can express appreciation, admiration, and fondness for every day, while unhappy couples get in the habit of scanning the environment for things they can criticize and complain about. Okay, last one, number 11, seek help early. According to Dr. Gottman, couples in need of help wait 6 years on average to seek help, but harmful conflict can deteriorate our marriages. So try not to wait too long to seek help. Hey, let's talk about friendship. So according to Dr. Gottman's research, he found that friendship is extremely important to building and maintaining long-term intimate relationships. And according to him, there are 3 ingredients that build friendship and intimate relationships. So the first ingredient is building love maps. So this is showing an active interest in your partner's world. What are their dreams, values, aspirations, thoughts, beliefs, people they interact with throughout the day, things like that. Really, this ingredient is just genuinely having an interest in your partner and their world. Okay, the second ingredient is expressing fondness and admiration. And this is communicating respect and affection in small ways throughout the day. So saying things like, thank you, I admire you, I respect you, I'm proud of you, things like that. So it is not enough just to feel gratitude and admiration towards our partner. We must also make sure that they can feel that by expressing it every day. Okay, the third ingredient is recognizing bids for emotional connection and turning towards them. So sensing or recognizing their emotional needs and responding to them appropriately. Okay, so to help you understand what this third ingredient is a little bit better, let's talk about bids. So what are bids? So bids are any attempt from one partner to another for attention, affirmation, affection, or any other positive connection. So bids show up in simple ways, like a smile or sigh, and in more complex ways, like a request for advice or help. So in general, women make more bids than men, but in the healthiest relationships, both partners are comfortable making all kinds of bids. So let's talk about an example of a bid to help you understand this a little bit better. So for example, let's pretend that you and your partner just got home from work and you both sit down on the couch to watch a movie together. And your partner lets out this big sigh. Okay, this sigh could be a bid for emotional connection. So in response to this bid, you may say, is everything all right? And this would be you turning towards that bid. So turning towards bids starts by paying attention to your partner. So if you pay attention to your partner, you'll recognize these bids and be able to respond to them appropriately rather than accidentally ignoring or rejecting them. Okay, and this third ingredient is a little bit more complicated. So if you want a little bit more information on this third ingredient, I highly recommend going to this video. So typing this video into your browser or highlighting it and pasting it into your browser. It's only 2 minutes long, but it does a really great job of explaining what this third ingredient is a little bit better. So highly recommend going and watching that. Okay, let's talk about commitment. So commitment is crucial to marriage. In fact, it may be the most important ingredient in the recipe for marital success. Pledging yourselves to each other and promising to love and support each other until you die can hold you together like no other glue. There is great power in a commitment made between 2 loving people. Okay, so commitment is extremely important. So we're going to talk about 4 ways to stay committed in our long-term relationships. So number 1, make the right choices. And this involves choosing to make your relationship a priority every day and not pursue a different partner. Okay, committed partners do not take their partner's commitment for granted, and committed partners make every effort to live in ways that reflect their commitment to their partner. Okay, number 2, strengthen and maintain your identity as a couple. So although you both need to preserve your own individual identity, committed partners also think of themselves as a team. And research has found that couples who have a strong sense of us have more marital success. So we can do this by spending time together, doing things you both enjoy and that have deep meaning to both of you. talking regularly about your goals, both your short-term and long-term goals, making important decisions together, developing a shared vision for your future, and talking about ways or of what you can do to increase your sense of us. Okay. Number 3, and this one's really important. This is make sacrifices. So research shows that sacrificing for your partner builds stronger long-term relationships. So this means looking at things you can do to make your partner happy and recognizing the joy that you feel when you do that. Okay, the important thing about making sacrifices is that both partners need to be sacrificing for the other. If only one partner is sacrificing for the other, the relationship can become unbalanced, which can decrease the quality of our relationships. So it's important that both partners are equally sacrificing for the other. Hey, number 4, last one. Want and expect your relationship to last. So during tough times, both partners need to believe and act as though their marriage will last no matter what. This belief makes you feel safe in your marriage and makes you more likely to not overreact to small problems, forgive easier for minor hurt feelings, and trust your partner more. Okay, so to support your expectation that your relationship will last, do not threaten it with divorce. Instead, talk often about your goals and future together. Now let's talk about passion. Okay, when relationships are new, we become flooded with dopamine. And this is a neurotransmitter that creates feelings of reward, energy, exhilaration, and motivation. So this is why new relationships at the beginning can feel so exciting. However, due to hedonic adaptation, as our partner and our relationship becomes familiar, dopamine fades. Although successful long-term relationships typically shift from a dopamine-rich relationship to one rich in oxytocin, and this is a hormone that creates feelings of closeness and connection, there are still things we can do to maintain passion in our relationships. So let's talk about ways to do that. So challenging hedonic adaptation involves engaging in a variety of novel activities. So in our relationships, this could include mixing up date night and being creative with date night. Also trying a new and exciting activity together, laughing together often, leaving love notes in surprising places for your partner to find, taking a spontaneous trip, having spontaneous sex, and learning something new together. Okay, so I'm not going to say a lot about sex. The only thing I really want to point out is that research has found that secure relationships lead to improved sex. Improved sex does not lead to secure relationships. And this is true for all genders. So if you want to improve sex in your intimate relationships, start by improving your emotional connection. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about, and this is the Sound Relationship House Inspection Exercise. Okay, and we've made this available for you to go ahead and download if you would like. And this exercise allows you and your partner to examine different aspects of your relationship to identify what aspects are functioning well and what aspects may need attention. And what I love about this exercise is that you both individually do this on your own. So you both individually examine different aspects of your relationship and note which ones are functioning well and which aspects may need more attention. And then you come back together and talk about what both of you think. So you can both have a better understanding of each of your perceptions of your relationship. So this is a great exercise. I highly recommend doing it with your partner if you're already in a long-term relationship, or eventually when you end up in a long-term relationship down the road. Okay, so in summary, marriage appears to be good for our physical and mental health. Being unhappily married, though, can have detrimental effects on our health and well-being. We all form a primary attachment style based on our relationship with our primary caregiver in childhood. The 4 styles include secure, and this one is the one that's most associated with the happiest and healthiest relationships. And then there's 3 insecure styles, and those include anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. Okay, also healthy feelings of self-worth are positively associated with intimate relationship quality. Those with healthy feelings of self-worth in relationships are thicker skinned, less preoccupied with themselves, more flexible in their thinking, able to accept feedback and criticisms in a healthier way, and able to have healthier communication skills. Okay, we can build and maintain intimacy through healthy disclosure and appropriate responsiveness. Okay, the 4 types of communication behaviors during conflict that predict divorce include criticisms, defensiveness, disrespect and contempt, and stonewalling. Also, conflict can increase marriage quality if handled productively, and 11 recommendations to keep communication clean and productive were provided. Okay, the 3 ingredients that build friendship and intimate relationships include building love maps, expressing fondness and admiration, and recognizing bids for emotional connection and turning towards them. 4 ways to stay committed in long-term intimate relationships include making the right choices, strengthening and maintaining your identity as a couple, making sacrifices for each other, and wanting and expecting your relationship to last. Also, passion can be maintained by filling your relationship with a variety of novel activities. Also, improving sex in your intimate relationships first starts with improving your emotional connection. And finally, the Sound Relationship House inspection exercise can help you and your partner identify aspects of your relationship that are functioning well and identify aspects that may need a little bit more attention. Okay. So these things that we talked about in our lesson today, they are more general scientific backed ways to increase the quality of our intimate relationships. However, if you and your partner are having a hard time working through difficult things in your relationship, I highly recommend reaching out to a therapist who can provide you with more individualized help and tools to help you and your partner improve the quality of your relationships, of your relationship. So to be connected with one of our amazing therapists, you can reach out to this number found at the bottom of the slide. And this number can help connect you with one of our incredible therapists. So I highly recommend reaching out for therapy. Okay, looking ahead. In part 3, we will be talking about cultivating self-compassion, battling negative thinking, and building optimism. This is a great lesson. This includes some of my favorite topics. So I really hope that you'll join me for part 3. Thank you so much for joining me today for part 2, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.